Good evening, Andrew, from far, far away.
Yes,
Well, it being 5:30, I will call to order the meeting of July 28th of the Shelburne Select Board. Our first matter of business is to review or accept the minutes from the July 14th meeting. I have read them, reviewed them. I found nothing errant in the content. Rodney?
I found nothing wrong with them.
Okay. Um, we will, Andrew was not at that meeting, so we'll go ahead and look for a motion to approve as submitted.
I will make a motion to approve as submitted.
And I will second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll put the matter to a vote. Rodney?
Aye.
I am I, and Andrew
I'm abstaining.
abstains. Perfect. Let's move on to, we do have a 5:45 appointment expected to be roughly a half hour requested. We'll move on to liaison reports. Rod, any from you tonight?
I have nothing tonight. No.
Okay. Andrew?
Yeah, I have some notes to share. I did meet with Jeff Johnston this morning, gave me some updates. Terry and I had looked at the pothole deck, which has a half a dozen or more boards that have sprung up, and Jeff did agree to have his crew go and screw them down. So that was nice of him to jump in on that since they looked like there could be some tripping hazards there. And so they'll take care of that. I did think that I would explore with the Community Preservation Committee whether that's a potentially eligible project for next year to perhaps look into replacing that deck with Trex or some other composite material that might last a good long while. I was there when the grant installed it almost 30 years ago, and it's looking its age. So
Is
I think it might be if it's an eligible project, that would be one way to go. That would save us some money. Um, the Hill Cemetery, we're going to talk about, I guess, at the next meeting. But I did speak with Jeff a little bit about that. The Cowell Gym Grate Moving Project has been completed. Our new highway laborer, Seth Gerard, has started today. And he's learning the intricacies of downtown trash collection and painting crosswalks and other projects. The Jeff said there's been some erosion problems on the embankment near Connie Clark's place on Old Greenfield Road, and so he's getting an estimate from Warner about how to keep the silt from going into the waterway around the culvert there. So we'll hear more on that when he's got a price from them. Um, the Finance Committee did approve the repair strategy to fix the tractor, which has a rough estimate of $10,000 to $12,000. No final price as yet, but that's the ballpark they're working in. Um, and they're currently have been spreading about 800 or 900 tons of gravel on our dirt roads. So that's been a lot of their summer work of late to just get those in shape while the weather is favorable for that. Um, and upcoming in terms, I think once they get the final numbers from the Healy administration on the additional Chapter 90 funding that we're expecting to come our way, we can begin planning some of the larger road projects. For now, they're going to be doing some skim patching on Smead Hill Road, which is one of the ones in very bad shape. Um, and South Shelburne also has some patches that are in pretty rough shape. And Jeff says he wants to look at some roads in the village as well. So those will be ones that we'll be taking a closer look at once we get a sense of what kind of money we're working with this year. Um, in terms of other things, the Pratt committee will be meeting tomorrow at 4. So I'll have more to tell you once we get that going. But um, there's an effort underway to um, put together a memorandum of understanding with the library to better clarify the maintenance issues and other issues that go elements that go into the shared costs with the town of Buckland. So as sort of similar to the senior center, as we are moving to a new structure with them, hopefully we are also moving to greater clarity with Buckland and with the Arms Library about how to share the costs on that building, though it's a complex issue. Um, and then two things that are not exactly liaison, but sort of gray areas in between. The Energy Committee has received uh, a grant to get and has gotten Wesson and Sampson to come and begin doing an audit on the police building, so that we should have a better sense of what our opportunities are for getting funding to help tighten up that building and see whether that's a good site for future solar projects as well. They think that it's certainly got a good roof in terms of exposure, but we need to confirm whether the roof is able to hold solar panels and that sort of thing. Um, and Jeff Bettner, who's chairing that committee, had said that their committee has some new folks and they're looking into exploring the climate leadership designation that Ashfield was recently awarded, to see whether that's something that Shelburne would like to pursue. So that'll take some doing, but if the town goes down that path, there are some good grant opportunities there for expanding our energy generating opportunities and efficiency. Um, and then the other one is Terry and I met with the contractor who at Renaissance Builders who is at work on the Memorial Hall Theater. That project is going well. The tin ceiling has been repaired and replaced, looking great. They got the replacement tin panels delivered and installed, and which I was expecting was going to take them longer, but that's moving forward. One issue that they have discovered now that they're working on floor repairs is that there's places where the subfloor is pretty punky, which was not a piece that we had really worked into the project. And it has a bearing on the project in that the seats need to be screwed to the floor and be able to, have something to hold on to. They're feeling okay about for the most part, about the ground floor of the theater, as they're repairing and refinishing that. But the balcony was more of a question mark, and so we all looked at it, Jim from Memorial Hall Association and Terry and I and the contractor and Joe Matty, the architect. And our sort of consensus recommendation was that we accept their recommendation, which was to put a 1/4 inch of plywood and cover it with a marmoleum laminate, that would give them more of a bonded surface to uh, that the screws could, for the chairs could hold something more firmly. And because the balcony is not a high visibility area, we didn't think that covering the floor up there would be a major detriment. The wood in the balcony is not as beautiful as the wood downstairs, and we would probably have painted it anyway. And and Steve from Renaissance Builders thought it would be actually cheaper to do that than to refinish the floor. So we'll have a little bit of savings going in that direction. So that's the recommendation for addressing the subfloor issue in the Memorial Hall balcony.
Great,
That's all I've got.
comprehensive, great reports. Thank you. Um, Terry, we'll check real quick with you. I know you now have air conditioning again back in town hall.
Yes.
Finally got that. Hopefully that holds this time. Another thing that popped up today, literally, was a bat. And the discussion happened that I was unaware of, that on occasion bats tend to fly around during movies and so on upstairs. And the
Yes.
thought was we might want to find a way to look at the possibility of some uh, bat removal or eviction, let's say, bat eviction, and seal the building up. But I think that might be a project, dollar and cent wise, but maybe worth looking into at this point as well, since uh, the contractors are probably seeing a lot of opportunity for that to happen as far as entrance and exits for them. Just food for thought.
Yeah, no, the experience we've had with the bats is mostly that they roost behind the stage curtain in the stage area, and they fly out from there. And I think the last time we attempted some sealing was that's with a C and an S. Um, it was when we did insulation up there. And I think we had some success because there seemed to be a reduction in bad appearances, but they have reappeared, since we started showing movies again after COVID, not in the same numbers that they were there before. But they are still finding their way in, and bats don't need just very, very tiny spaces to enter a building. So it's not an easy project, but it's one that I think when we hit phase 3 of the capital campaign, and can address particularly the backstage area, that would be the time to have contractors really see if we can find the entrances in those high ceiling areas, because I think that's pretty much the most likely where they're coming in. But we'll see.
It's a horrible pun, but I'm glad it's on your radar.
Yes.
Was there anything else you wanted to add this evening?
No.
No, thank you.
Okay. I only have a quick update on the police department. Um, as I think you've all saw in an email, we had over 20 applicants for the police administrative assistant position, the new position that is looking to be filled currently. I spent a good amount of time today and read 20 some odd of them. It's going to be a chore to winnow it down. And I would like to suggest or ask support of my two fellow members to allow me to facilitate a kind of a sub review group to cut that 20 some odd applications down into a reasonable number for final interviews before you guys are brought in. Was kind of thinking perhaps Terry, the chief, myself as liaison to the police department, maybe one of the sergeants who's on the desk a lot there. Any thoughts or comments on that?
That's fine with me.
Fine with me.
We'll push that forward because I know everyone would like to see that position filled. So we'll move forward and talk about narrowing it down and getting some interviews scheduled. So thank you for that. And that's all I have for projects report. We do have like 1 minute. So as I introduce, I'm sure we'll kill that. I see Chris Curtis has now joined us for his 5:45 appointment. This is on the, excuse me, the Deerfield River Wild and Scenic Initiative. You'll recall, actually before your time on the board, Rod, but it came before us. We supported the project. We named a representative, and we have the results to be presented to us tonight. We've allotted a short half hour to cover that. So, Chris, we'll turn the floor to yourself.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I guess our representative on the committee is also here joining us. Thank you for doing that. So I'm just to introduce myself, I'm Chris Curtis. I'm the Vice President of the Deerfield River Watershed Association. We're a nonprofit watershed organization working to protect and enhance the Deerfield River. And we have gotten a grant from the Woodlands Partnership to do a study of the Deerfield River and its eligibility for National Wild and Scenic River designation. And so we've completed that study working with the committee, and I wanted to basically spend my time presenting some of the findings from the study with you. Um, so I am going to try to share my screen with you. Um, hmm.
You should be all set, Chris.
I'm sorry.
I've just made you a co-host, so you should be
Oh,
set.
you did.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm seeing advanced sharing options. I haven't actually done this before, so I'm apologizing, but maybe I can ask if you have some guidance on how to share screen here.
At the bottom of your screen, you should see a green icon with an arrow that says share. I think that's what you need.
Yeah, yeah. And then it says one participant can share at a time. That's checked.
I'll say
Advanced sharing
multiple.
options. Huh. It's not giving me the option to actually share.
If you right click on anything, will it give you the option?
Chris, often you have to open the thing you want to share on your laptop, and then the Zoom share can see it, and it should appear in the share screen.
How about now? Is that working for you guys?
Yes.
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 Okay, great. Okay. Glad to know that that works. Um, so the study that we did was done in cooperation with the Connecticut River Conservancy, and as I mentioned, our local advisory committee that included representatives from each of the communities along the river. So in terms of what I'd like to try to achieve this evening, I want to present some of the findings from the study to you, give you some time for questions and answers or any comments that you might have about it, and then ask you to consider a vote of endorsement for the plan and the designation of the Deerfield River at the end. So some of the key findings, just kind of an overview. Uh, we looked at national wild and scenic rivers across the country and different studies and the approval process for doing that in the study. We also identified what are called outstandingly remarkable values. That's a term that's straight out of the federal legislation, and it means really what's special about the river that makes it significant enough to be a national wild and scenic river. So we identified those values, and I'll talk more about those in detail. Um, we did an evaluation of the river's eligibility and what kind of classification it would have, also of its suitability. Um, we had a series of meetings over 9 months with the study committee, and we also did a long process of public engagement, which we're still involved with, including this meeting. And we'll have several public meetings broadly across the watershed as well. And we'll talk a little bit about support for designation from the communities in the region. Um, we identified river management issues and strategies to address those, and what the next steps would be in the process. And this is the river's watershed and some of the major tributaries. We focused on 23 different river segments in the Deerfield River watershed, and you can see those listed here. Many of them are in your area, and you're probably familiar with them. We're also going to be doing a study of the Vermont section of the watershed, but that is a separately funded project, and we're still looking for resources to complete that piece. So this part of the study focused all entirely on Massachusetts. So National Wild and Scenic Rivers have a pretty prescribed process for studying them and approving them. And this is kind of the basic steps in the process. You have to first demonstrate that you have local support. Congress then passes legislation for a feasibility study. Then the National Park Service typically funds and conducts that study, and a local steering committee assists with it. The last three steps, 2, 3, and 4, we actually accomplished in this project with Woodlands Partnership money because we were not able to access anything from Congress. So we've kind of done a different version of that. So communities then adopt the locally developed watershed plan, which is what we're talking about tonight. And then communities petition Congress that the river be designated as a partnership wild and scenic river, and I'll explain what that is. And then Congress ultimately passes the legislation, and then the river can then receive federal assistance following that. There is an alternative process to this, which involves designating first a state scenic river and then having the state's governor petition the Secretary of the Interior to make the designation. That was done. I worked on a similar project on the Westfield River, and that's how we did it on the Westfield River. So that's another possibility for us. So I mentioned this term outstandingly remarkable values, which some people find kind of funny. It's really, again, just what's really important and special about the river. And these are some of the things that we found that make it particularly remarkable. There's quite a few things on the river that are really special. One is the recreation of the river, because it has the sections of river that have class 2 through 5 rapids. It has some of the best whitewater boating and rafting in Massachusetts. We have the Mohican Mohawk Trail that parallels the river along a historic Native American route, and also many other beautiful state parks and hiking trails, 32 of them in total along the river. The river has an excellent trout fishery with some of the best dry fly fishing for wild trout in the East, one of the best cold water fisheries in all of New England, and it's arguably the premier wild trout stream in Massachusetts. It also has some significant old growth forest, including the tallest tree in Massachusetts and the largest collection of tall white pines in all of New England. It has many rare and endangered species, waterfalls, gorges, unique geologic formations, and large areas of core wildlife habitat, which are mapped by the state. Has an extensive amount of history, both colonial and Native American. It was historically along the Mohawk Trail that was a significant principal Native American travel route. And there's also some important rail lines that are along the river, and the Hoosick Tunnel is an example of a historic feature that is significant. The National Rivers Inventory, which was done several decades ago, identified multiple segments of the river as being eligible, and also some of the tributaries, the Cold River Bog, and Gulf brooks, which were named as wild free-flowing tributaries. So I mentioned we looked at also at the evaluation of eligibility and classification of the river. And we did that really for each one of the segments that I showed you earlier, the 22 different segments. So I'll take you through some of these. I think maybe you might be less interested in some than others. So I'll try to focus on the ones that are of interest to your community. So the first segment was the Deerfield River main stem, the section that goes really from what's called Dam number 2 to the confluence with the Connecticut River. It's got almost 14 miles that we determined to be eligible for wild and scenic designation. It's used heavily for recreation, kayaking, tubing, and fishing. It's got the Mohican Mohawk Trail along it, the South River State Forest. This is a section that's in your community. Scenic River Gorge, the historic Bardwell's Ferry Bridge that you see in the picture here, and some significant trout stream and historic Atlantic salmon fishery. And then segment number 2, which is kind of we're moving upstream basically. This one is also in your community from Gardeners Falls Dam to Dam number 2. This one is a short section, but we determined that about a little more than a half a mile was eligible, and the main reason for that is because of the Wilcox Hollow scenic area, which is, as you know, used pretty heavily for fishing and swimming. So that's an important piece. There was a third segment that was not eligible because of all of the dams, and then we moved up up to the fourth segment, which was from dam number 4 to dam number 3. Again, there's a little more than a half a mile there. It's not a long stretch, but it does have the Sunburn Beach swimming area. So we felt like that short segment was also potentially eligible. And then we come to the most really heavily used section of the river, which is from the Fife Brook Dam to dam number 4. And that's a long section it's got 16 miles of eligible river, heavily used for recreation, as I'm sure you know. It has not only whitewater boating and rafting in the Zor Gap Rapids, but it's got the Mohican Mohawk Trail and a whole series of other beautiful trails. It's probably, according to fisheries experts, the premier wild trout stretch in all of Massachusetts, and lots of history and scenery, as I had mentioned earlier. And then there's the section above that from dam number 5 to Bear Swamp. That's known as the Dryway, also very heavily used for whitewater boating. So 2 miles eligible there. And then we come to the tributaries. The Cold River, we found the entire Cold River, 13 miles is all eligible. And you can see there's also the classifications that we have identified for the rivers. This one was one of the ones that was classified as wild, while many of the other sections are recreational. This one, because it has no dams and a very high amount of preserved land and scenery, including the old growth forest, was eligible entirely. We looked at the Green River. It had 14 miles, almost 15 eligible, some historic covered bridges, and also a wild trout stream. The South River, which I believe is partially in your community, is that right? Has almost 15 miles eligible, and has number of really great recreational sites, swimming holes, a historic covered bridge, and several waterfalls that are highly scenic. And then the North River, there were 3 miles of the main stem eligible. I mentioned this one already. The North River West Branch had 12 and a half miles eligible. It has the Crow Shield Conservation Area and the Cook State Forest along that. And then the North River East Branch, which has the Arthur Smith Historic Covered Bridges, had 7 miles that were eligible. And then we had Pelham Brook, which was about 4 miles that was eligible. This is a rare wild rainbow trout stream and has all 3 species of wild trout in it. So pretty special place. Dunbar Brook, which is upstream from you, has old growth forest and waterfalls. The Bear River, which is in Conway and Ashfield, has a rare wild rainbow trout population and some unique geologic formations. Clesson Brook has almost 10 miles that's eligible. Again, trout stream in particular, that's what makes a lot of these tributaries particularly special. Similarly, the Chickley River in Hawley and Savoy, about 10 miles are eligible. And then Gulf Brook, which is again a little bit further upstream, about 3 miles, has Tannery Falls in its watershed. Bog Brook, short stream, has only about 1.25 miles, but again, a wild free-flowing river, kind of rare in Massachusetts. The Mill Brook, which has the Bissell covered bridge in it, has about almost 10 miles eligible. And Chapel Brook, about 6 miles eligible, including a wildlife management area in the Chapel Brook Falls area. There were a few segments that we found that were not eligible just because of the number of dams or development along the river. That's these 4 sections. So once we looked at that, we looked at the evaluation of suitability, and suitability kind of is an evaluation of how well protected the river is under existing laws. So Massachusetts is fortunate to have the Rivers Protection Act, which provides a great deal of protection and helps a lot, and also the Wetlands Act. And there's also federal protection under these 3 laws, the Clean Water Act, NEPA, and FEMA, flood insurance, and then local protection under local floodplain bylaws and other zoning bylaws. And then hopefully you can see this whole list, but we evaluated the support for designation, and we had, as Mr. LaPierre mentioned at the outset, we had reached out to communities 2 years ago to see if there was support for this concept, and there are now 14 Massachusetts communities through their select boards or mayors that have submitted letters of support for the idea, and also 12 regional or state organizations or businesses that have also stated their support. You can see the list here. I'm not going to read the whole thing off, but it's a significant amount of support, and we really haven't had any one state that they're opposed to the idea. And then we also reached out for support to our members of Congress in both Massachusetts and Vermont, and all 7 members of Congress, both Senate and House, have signed on to legislation to support this designation. So you can see the list again here of those members that are supporting. And legislation, we've been trying to get the study funded through Congress for almost 3 years now. So it's been filed 3 years in a row, and all 7 members have been signed on to that in support each time. I mentioned that the study also kind of evaluates river management issues and some strategies to try to address those. And so these were some of the things that the advisory committee helped us to identify as being some of the key things that are river management issues. They include invasive plants along the river. If you've been on the river, you've probably seen the Japanese knotweed problem. That's kind of the biggest one. Lack of access points to the river and to trails. Heavy recreational use and the lack of river rangers to help manage that. Debris and dumping. We have an annual river cleanup day that we sponsor, but we still have, every year we've got more of that to deal with. Water quality hotspots, there's a couple of those, particularly in the Greenfield area where there's some water quality issues and problems. And then increasing riverfront development pressures. So these are some of the strategies identified in the plan to address those issues. On the local side, communities could, at their own option, adopt river protection zoning, or perhaps improved floodplain zoning or local wetlands bylaws. On the regional side, we envision having a regional memorandum of understanding between the river communities that might sort of formalize our advisory committee to be active over a longer term and help to manage the river as it goes forward, and also really establish collaborative a collaboration between the communities to agree on strategies for the river. River cleanup days that I mentioned, we were already doing that through the Watershed Association. Through the Woodlands Partnership, there's been a proposal to look at a national heritage area for this same basic geography. So we might collaborate together on that. And then doing land protection with individual property owners through Franklin Land Trust, who were also collaborating. On the state side, there's the possibility of an outstanding resource water designation, a state scenic river designation, or ACEC, which stands for Area of Critical Environmental Concern. Those would have to be kind of evaluated on a case-by-case basis. And then on the federal side, the National Wild and Scenic River designation, which would include partnership rivers funding. And that is one of the really the main benefits and goals of getting the Wild and Scenic River designation is it comes with federal funding through what's called the Partnership Rivers Program. And typically that gives the region and the communities on the average of about $225,000 per year in federal funding to use for projects like trail improvements, river access, river cleanup, water quality improvements, things like that at local option. It's basically the money is provided and the communities decide how to use it. So I mentioned we have had this study committee, and you have a representative, but every community had representatives. We met, I believe, 9 times. It says 7, but I think we had 9 altogether. And so we had 11 communities that were engaged with that. So this is just kind of the description of the outreach and engagement process that we've done to this point, starting in 2022 when we first reached out to communities, and coming up to today to the release of the study, and we're meeting with select boards and mayors and city councils in each community to talk about it. So next steps toward designation, we want to try to get public comment on the study and integrate those comments and finalize the study for Massachusetts. Most of that's been done, and we've gotten a lot of comments, and the study that you were hopefully you got in your email is a fairly final version, but we're still interested in any public comment that we get going forward. We had a vote of the advisory committee to accept the study and recommend designation that happened in June. And now we're in the third step, which is community meetings. After that happens, and ideally, if there's, some degree of unanimity to recommend designation, we'll work with Congress to craft that legislation. We'll also probably work with Massachusetts on state scenic river designation in case we need to use that alternate route for federal designation. Um, and we'll continue to work with our advisory committee. We're trying to get funding to do that through the Woodlands Partnership. And at the same time, we are working with the Vermont watershed. We did get some National Park Service funding for that to work up on what's called a reconnaissance study in Vermont so that they can kind of catch up to where Massachusetts is. So that's my presentation. I'd open it up for questions that you might have or any comments that you have.
I'll just begin by saying that was a great overview. Very comprehensive, well organized, and a good thumbnail for bringing us back up to speed as to what's happened since our previous discussion on it. Andrew or Rod, any questions, comments?
I have nothing at this point.
I think we're good. Oh,
Yeah, I'm just interested, Chris, to see in your survey of other scenic and wild rivers, is the Deerfield River sort of typical or atypical in terms of its segmented quality? Because the Deerfield River, as I understand it, or have been told in the past, is the second most heavily dammed river in the country. And so it would then seem to follow that some, as you've pointed out, some segments are eligible and some are not. Is that what you found to be how rivers are these days in terms of seeking a wild and scenic designation, or are we unusual?
Well, you've stated that question really well and kind of summarized the issues that we kind of struggled with. I guess it is a heavily dammed river, and it's not easy to identify the segments that are eligible. And as you noted, some of them were not. But we felt, and we talked extensively with National Park Service about this, we felt that the areas between the dams basically functioned as free-flowing segments of river. And because of that, we've made the case that they should be eligible. It's similar to the Westfield River that we got designated earlier. Obviously, the Westfield has fewer dams, but they have some big dams on the Westfield, and we were able to get the free-flowing segments above and below the dams designated in that case. So we have some history with this. But yeah, it's a challenging river in that regard. But I also think personally, I believe it's really the most beautiful river in the entire state. So it's why I work on it, why I spend my time on it. I spend a lot of volunteer time, with the Watershed Association, and we all the members of our board do the same because we believe in that.
Well, it's nice to see that there's so many tributary pieces that are, in fact, wild rivers, and so I think that's a really special piece of it as well.
Absolutely. Joan, did you want to add anything on your end?
No, that was a very clear overview of what we studied, and it was interesting to hear from other representatives of their town needs and what their towns have that are special that could possibly help get the designation for the river. I enjoyed my time there. I learned a lot from other parts of the river that I didn't know. You've done a great job.
Thank you.
great. So I think the purpose tonight was to bring us up to speed. You've done that. The second purpose would be to request a vote to endorse the study and proceeding with the request for designation. Is that something the board would like to entertain and do this evening? If so, I'll look for a motion.
I would make that motion.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
I do have a question for you, Chris. If we vote yes on this resolution and you go then forward and achieve this wild and scenic designation, does that designation then put any further restrictions or limitations on what towns might do beyond what's already restricted and regulated through the various local, state, and federal acts that you outlined?
Yeah, that's another really good question. What the Wild and Scenic River designation does is it says that any federally permitted dam or water resources project is prohibited along the river. So this does not affect any of the existing dams or any of the existing hydro facilities in any way because those predate the designation. But it basically says we're not going to build any more of those on the river. So the free flowing sections that are identified would remain, permanently free flowing. And I guess the only other thing that would be potentially affected is something like if there's federally funded bridge or culvert project, it gets reviewed by the National Park Service and they get to comment on it to make sure that that bridge or culvert project doesn't impair the scenic qualities again of the river or the tributary in question. So those are the basic provisions. And then, on the benefits side, I mentioned the Partnership Rivers funding, and again, that's federal funding that we don't get currently, that could really benefit communities. I mentioned some of the strategies that we might consider, like a river ranger system on the river that could potentially be funded through the Partnership Rivers program, assuming that it stays in place, I guess.
Any other
Yeah, no,
comments?
I was just thinking that the main bridges that we have to be concerned about in town are either the state arterial roads of Route 2 and I-91 at the top and bottom of our town, and then the historic bridges in between, of which there are three, and those would be. And all of them, Bardwell Ferry is currently under construction. And the Iron Bridge has been worked on. The Bridge of Flowers just got a big grant, but your designation isn't going to slow those processes down a lot if they need further work in the future, in terms of reviews and that sort of thing to help them move forward. I mean, bridges are
No,
pretty heavily regulated as it is, so they move slowly when you do need to work on them, but this isn't going to make them move even slower, is it?
no, and to be perfectly frank with you, I think our best case scenario on designation, it might take us 4 or 5 years before that actually happens. So your projects that you're mentioning now would be, well completed, hopefully by that time. In the future, as I mentioned, the Park Service would have the opportunity to comment on design plans, but I don't think that, I have not had the experience that it slows projects down. It's a simultaneous review with the other reviews that go on.
Good.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll put the matter to a vote. Rod,
Aye.
Andrew,
Yes.
and I am aye. Motion passes 3-0-0.
Well, thank you very much. Really appreciate your support. You guys have been supportive from the very beginning and appreciate your continued help.
Thanks
Great.
for a great presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a
Thanks
good.
very much.
Before we move on, I'll mention real briefly, I had mentioned that I'd gone through the 20 or some odd um, applications for the police administrative assistant position. They are on the select board table when you do warrants this week. If you want to thumb through them and pull any out that you think might be worthy, we've started a mini pile already, but feel free to do that as well.
I will not be coming in this week to sign warrants, so but I will look at them when I get back.
All right, great.
Yeah.
All right. And Rod, you're good for warrants this week.
Yes, I'll definitely look through them.
Perfect. Okay, we are up to old business. Pocket Park project. You have in your packet the two bids that have come in. Um, One was very smooth and comprehensive. The other was a bit like pulling teeth with unresponsive situation that makes you a little concerned if your business is unresponsive when you're trying to get a job. What's it going to be like if you get it? It was my initial first blush thought process. The two are within $100 of each other, which was actually quite amazing of all the requests for proposals I've seen to be that close. Any feedback, comments, thoughts on that?
I had the same reaction that you did, Rick. I was disappointed that the the low bidder was not as was not responsive until the very last minute. I guess this morning they finally submitted some references, and so I was hoping we could go for a review of qualifications, but our advice was that we could not do that. So I think seems like we have to go forward with the low bid, and I guess on the good side, their references look pretty good. So
Mhm.
hopefully that will dig them out of the hole, so to speak.
I was a little confused on it in that we advertised it as a request for proposals as opposed to a request for bids, which in my mind was if you're bidding and you're low bidder, you got the job. If you submit a proposal, the board would have their option to pick the highest bidder if they so chose. But feedback we got from the FERCog procurement officer was not 100% clear on that, but did say at one point that if uh, the low bidder didn't come forward with any recommendations, that we certainly had the right to go ahead and award the job to the other, which was only $100 higher. And we looked at the notice for it, and it said that the the job would be awarded to the lowest qualified bidder. And so, as you mentioned, the qualifications angle is a maybe, but like you said, the references were all positive. Um, the um, the high bidder had a lot of access to their background, what they've done. The other had a website that was basically just pictures. Didn't give me a lot of information about what they did, but um, they appear to have all the qualifications needed. So what's your pleasure on this matter this evening? Andrew, this is really your baby.
Well, my preference would have been to go with the $100 more. But it sounds like the advice we've been given is that we're not allowed to do that. Is that correct, Terry?
That is correct. And
Yeah.
I've since received two more responses to my reference inquiries this afternoon, and they really are favorable. And they
Yeah.
seem to be more construction related, like in terms of excavation, building walls, pouring concrete. One gentleman said they've come in with a crew of four. Two are machine operators. The other two are hauling materials in and out. And I felt much more comfortable after hearing feedback.
Yeah. Well, I think if they are willing to do a preliminary meeting with me and Terry and anybody else who wants to join on that, we can hopefully, nail down the specifics of the project and the oversight. And Terry, did you have any thoughts about oversight for that, or should we just hope for the best once we give them our, sort of on-site guidance?
I definitely think it would be great to have someone there. I mean, I'm close enough where I can walk down and check on a project, but I'm not going to know that the grade of the walkways they're putting in
Right.
meet handicapped accessibility codes. I guess we'll need some assurances from the contractor that, I
I
don't know
mean,
if,
one thought I had is, we did get Joe Matty very generously gave us his architectural services for the Memorial Hall project at a sort of quasi pro bono kind of price. Um, and uh, and he might be willing to, provide some of that handicap access kind of consult if it wasn't too much. I don't know. Does that seem like something we should explore?
I don't know if
My
it's going
feeling is we should have someone kind of overseeing.
Yeah, I don't think this is something we should put on Terry's plate. Like she said, she can walk
Right.
down at lunch or whatever and call somebody and say, hey, what do you think? You might want to come take a look. But I don't think the onus of responsibility should be put to Terry. Um, and if Joe is willing to do it within our budget, it would impact how far after what can be accomplished as far as maybe we'd have to lose a few trees or whatever, or two benches instead of one, or whatever the plans are for trying to flesh out any remaining funds after this, then let's see if Joe can do it. But I think if we award the bid tonight, it should be with the provision that they attend the site meeting in advance and we definitely itemize things such as their responsibility to ensure ADA grading of the pathways, et cetera. So,
Yeah, and we did write that into the spec, so it's just that we want to have a sort of clerk of the works person to sign off and say, yes, that did in fact happen.
to.
Um, and to hold them to it if they are not quite there. So that they don't leave the job without having fulfilled the specs in the bid.
uh, kind of off the top of my head, Rodney, you have construction experience. Is that anything you'd consider taking on as obviously
I would consider taking that on.
it would obviously be 100% pro bono because it would certainly be a conflict for us
Oh,
to
yes, yep. No, I'd be more than glad to check periodically.
of those amongst us, you have the experience and your decades of construction experience. You've seen a few excavations and grading.
Yes, I have.
You've dealt with ADA pitches.
Yes, yep, yep.
I'm very comfortable with that. Andrew,
Yeah, if you want to do it, Rodney, that's fine.
Sure.
makes it neat. Okay, do we have a motion to award the contract to Earth Moving Solutions of Agawam, I believe, for $31,900 for the landscape grade recontouring of the pocket park?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
Only Terry, that if you would go ahead and if you would post when we schedule that site meeting, if you would post it, if Rodney and I are both going to be there, then that would be good.
Okay.
Terrific. No further discussion? Hearing none, we'll put the matter to a vote. Andrew?
Aye.
Rod?
Aye.
And I am aye. Motion passes 3-0-0. And Rod, thanks for stepping up to kind of
Sure. Glad to do it.
be a set of eyes that knows what they're looking at. beats winging it by a long shot.
Sometimes that's the best way to go too.
Terrific. Village Information Center is only informational. It looks gorgeous, by the way. Today I noticed they've put an air conditioner up in the top window on the second floor over the information center. The painting job looks terrific. The new window looks terrific. The fence is back up and in place, so we can close the book on that one, I believe.
Good.
New business. You mentioned it in your liaison report. The New Holland, the 2007 tractor repair is going to be in the 9 to 10, hopefully, $1,000 range repair. The Finance Committee did approve it. It is an item that's on the schedule to be replaced due to its age and use. But it's no good to us to trade in or try to sell when that happens without repairing it. So that's moving forward. Buildings, facilities, and grounds position. Terry had sent us out an email saying we had a good number of potential candidates, asked us for times. I responded and Jeff responded. We haven't heard from either of you two fellas as to opportunities to schedule some appointments.
Do you have those dates in front of you now?
I think
August 7th was a date that worked for Jeff.
August
It's a
7th?
Thursday.
What time?
We haven't discussed a time. It could be
Okay.
afternoon.
Yeah, later in the afternoon is better for me, but as late as you can go would be helpful, but I am available then.
Rod,
Yeah, I can make the 7th work.
What is a preference of time, Andrew?
I
Would
would rather
3:30?
earlier in the day though than
Okay.
later.
I have a Zoom stuff going on in the morning. So yeah, 3:30 or 4 would be good for me.
I can make that work myself. That was the
I'll
date
make-
Jeff had.
Yes.
Can you do 3:30?
I'll do 3:30.
We'd probably
Okay.
need, unless we do 15-minute blocks, we could start at 3:30, 3:45, 4.
Yeah, I'll figure it out based on how many we've identified.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Also in your packet, under new business, the last item, we have a cover letter request.
A what request?
A cover letter. I got distracted. Did I miss something here?
It's a letter of support request.
Yep, I had another document in from Jeff on the tractor, and I said, wait a minute, we just dealt with that. All right, we had the cover letter from Joe Ray from the Sweetheart requesting our support to the Massachusetts Historical Commission for additional state historic tax credits related to the rehabilitation of the Sweetheart Restaurant. You also have a draft of a letter prepared for us to consider a vote of support for that action. Any comments, discussion on what you've seen?
The only question I have about it is that Joe did pretty extensive renovations to the interior of the place before applying for historic designation. Does that impact his eligibility for a historic credit there?
It does
He's
have,
already received Mass Historic credits, so he's seeking a second round
Yep.
for the
Oh,
final
okay.
phase.
it's my understanding it was rated as to a percentage of the property that could be rehabilitated or altered beyond what you'd consider a historic restoration, and he met that.
Okay.
So I've read the letter. I'm comfortable with the way it's written. Is there a
I'm
motion
comfortable.
to
I'm
approve?
comfortable with it as well.
Do you have a problem with any of the wording of it, Andrew?
No.
Okay. Motion to approve signing this letter.
So moved.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded to approve a letter of support for this project. Any further discussion? Hearing none, matter to a vote. Rod,
Aye.
Andrew,
Aye.
and I am aye. Motion passes 3-0-0. Our next meeting under any other business is August 11th. I think vacations are almost over then. We're all available for that.
Yes.
Yes.
Correspondence, we have a,
Actually, before you move on from other business, I just wanted to check in. Terry, have you been in communication with John Walsh about the various Cowell Gym projects that he's overseeing? I know he's been generous in staying on beyond his tenure to help kind of wind that up, but I want to make sure that we get the wrap on whatever it is he's doing.
Yes, all but 2 windows have been installed. I think 2 windows are on back order, and I believe they're the basement level windows. And once, I think he thought that the shade project would start in the next couple weeks. And once that's complete, he's perfectly willing to stay on and start getting quotes for the tab room work.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, no, I just wanted to make sure that we, if he's willing to have kind of a final wrap up from him when he's reached that point.
Mhm.
That'd
Yeah,
be
and it's, the shades are paid for by Green Community Funding, so we're staying in close contact, so I know when to finish that final report.
okay. Great.
I have one other item under other business, Rick, if you don't mind.
go ahead.
The CPC committee is looking for a representative to serve as their historic preservation representative. The woman that was serving in that capacity is no longer interested. So I told them I would put it out there. Maybe we'll get it in the Two-Town newsletter too, to see if I've got it on the website. The conservation also doesn't have any representation, nor do they have any membership that's interested in serving.
That's a shame. What if,
Are you willing to, Terry, um, if you're willing to write up a short note about those two things, we'd be certainly happy to put it into the Two-Town News. If you want me to elaborate on it, I certainly can, but we're just going to press
Right.
in the next few
So I would
days.
wait until the next month to do
Right.
it.
Yes, but no, that we'd be glad to do that.
Okay.
anything else?
Nope.
On to correspondence. We have communication from Christian LePant. Looking to complete 2 to 3 priority projects is their goal for this pilot program that we signed on to. You recall, 12-month funded. They asked us to fund out to 18 months, which we did agree to do. They're meeting with Northfield, Turners Falls, and Shelburne Falls to look for ideas to coordinate downtown business. He's planning, actually, there was a great article from the Recorder on his background and capacity, which gave me a lot more confidence in the project, I must say. He seems very skilled and learned in that area. So I think at this point, we're asking ourselves to give some thought to what some projects for our downtown may be. He has a lofty goal of 2 to 3 priority projects. Let's try to give him that many, but when he reaches out to have a meeting, we can hopefully entertain that and provide some thoughts. So put on your thinking caps. Andrew, you probably got ideas already. But
I do have some, yeah, and if he has other funding sources for our deck, I would certainly welcome his energy and zeal as a grant writer to help us explore that kind of thing is that that is an expensive project, and it's one we did the last time we had funding of this kind, to do downtown work. I would just say that I have to confess, having been one of the people who served on several wayfinding and sign committees over the last 30 years, that I feel like we have accomplished that task in our downtown, and that I would be a little skeptical about wanting to oversign our village with more signage. And so, if somebody comes forward with a burning need for wayfinding, I would entertain it. But otherwise, I would say be careful about putting more signs in our downtown. It's one of those things that these kinds of projects tend to lean to, because it's something that's visible and tangible, and that you can accomplish within the short, time frame that you have. But that by itself is not a sufficient reason to do it, in my view. Um, so those are my 2 cents there.
I'd agree with your 2 cents there as well. I felt like the downtown action plan that they're discussing was talking about shaping the character and the economy for the region. And maybe a deck restoration could fall into that category somehow, but it's going to be a meet and greet and a brainstorming session. He'll be contacting us for us, and hopefully we can all attend if we post it properly and hear what he has to say and get some input.
And the other project, which is somewhat underway, and maybe Kate Chadwick will enlighten us about it, but I think is a kind of wayfinding vehicle that I think could benefit from more energy and investment, is the revival of the shelburnefalls.com website. Because that's the way most people actually do wayfinding, is on their phones. And so if we can find better ways to guide people, virtually, in the way that they're accustomed to doing so now, without putting more physical signs in the downtown, I think that would actually get more visitors to our area and help them find their way around effectively.
Yep. The thought process of an app
Yes.
that makes a whole lot of sense, but
Yeah.
who knows what we've got to work with. It'll be interesting to see it play out. Any other correspondence? Any public comment? We have no one attending at this point. I guess we're up to a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Put the matter to a vote. Andrew.
Aye.
Rod.
Aye.
I am I. Motion passes 3-0-0. Thank you guys for your time tonight, and safe travels back to the western part of the state, Andrew.
Thank you very much. All right.
Night.
Thanks,
Good
Thanks,
night.
Rick. Good night.
Night.
Good night.